how did it feel when you first got signed onto the UFC? Was that a goal you've been shooting for a while?
With the UFC, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was, I think that's kind of like a lot of fighters' dream is to go to UFC. I mean,
Oh
that's
yeah,
our
absolutely.
NHL. That's the top of the pyramid. So, absolutely, I got into fighting watching the UFC. So, obviously wanted to get into it.
The UFC was what like first piqued your interest in MMA?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was always a fan of martial arts growing up. Watching Bruce Lee movies and Arnold Schwarzenegger and things like that growing up, and I was actually pretty young when UFC first came out and didn't really get it at first, and but as I kind of started watching it, I really started to love it, and I started jujitsu myself when I was 15. So I've been at it a while and watching it for a long time. So it seemed like that's where I wanted to go.
So it was like a dream come true for you then once you first got signed on.
Absolutely. I mean, it was one of the happiest days I've ever had, and it was kind of in shock. My manager at the time actually surprised me with it, and we were actually talking about booking another fight for a different event, and I was kind of getting frustrated with how long it was taking. It felt like nothing was happening. I was like, hey, I want to find out about this fight, and then he surprised me with the contracts for UFC, and I was blew my mind a bit, and obviously it was a good surprise. So I forgave him for screwing with me with others.
Was there a certain fighter that got you interested when you first started watching UFC?
Dan Severn, yeah, I grew up. He's one of the guys I idolized when I was first watching UFC, and fortunately I was able to fight him a bit later in my career, and I think it was one of the fights that actually got me into UFC was fighting him. So that was quite an honor for me, and it was a little freaky at the same time standing across the ring looking at Dan Severn going, holy shit, this is Dan Severn, and it was good though. It turned out well for me, and I think that was the turning point when I was kind of early in my career when I fighting Dan Severn, and I remember seeing him a couple of times and realizing it's just another man in there. It's not like some guy up on a pedestal that you look at and you kind of idolize, and it's just another guy in there, flesh and blood, and you can hurt him just as easy as you can hurt you.
So how did you get the name The Matrix? Was that like 'cause you can bob and weave out of punches or something? Like what? How did you get
Yeah,
that?
yeah, I got the Matrix nickname. I was down training with Jason McDonald at a gym here, and I ended up doing this like front flip cartwheel guard pass over top, and and a guy my size typically doesn't do that sort of thing. And
Yeah.
some kids watch, and they kind of caught on to. They said, "Holy, you look like you're in the Matrix," and the manager happened to be there, and he caught it and just ran with it. He started dumping me out as the Matrix, and it is kind of fitting nickname. Sometimes I do
Yeah, it's definitely a cool
not
name.
much in fights, but in training I do quite a bit of like pretty fancy kind of guard passes and kind of a little more acrobatic stuff for a guy my size.
So how did it feel when you first became a champion of your division?
That was a great day. I mean, I still like look at that belt and kind of smile, and that was like one of my huge accomplishments getting into fighting, and even more so than going to the UFC. And so when I won that belt, that was really a dream come true for me, and made me very excited. And it's still one of my prouder accomplishments.
Do you think you can achieve the same in the UFC as well?
Absolutely. Everyone around here knows that. When my head's into it, I'm focused, I'm training. I'm one of the most dangerous guys around, and I know I have to go and improve that. But I've trained with a lot of UFC fighters, and a lot of them I beat. And when I'm on my game and I'm focused on fighting, there's not a lot of guys who I couldn't beat. So that's ultimately my goal is to win that MSC belt again, go back to UFC, and make a run at the belt for UFC, and that's really like after this layoff I've had, that's my ultimate goal is to throw 100% into the fighting, and and have no regrets. If I give it all I got and fail, then fine. At least I gave it, and I don't look back in 20 years and say, oh, I shouldn't have done that. So I'm gonna make a run for it and see how far I can take it.
You've won over twice the amount of times you've lost, so I could see that happening in your future. Why do you think you've been so successful so far in your career?
Um, that's a good question. I think I do have. It sounds kind of arrogant saying it, but I think I do have a lot of talent, and my losses I can all attribute to getting sidetracked in my career. And everyone, my training partners, managers, they all know it's all just being not focused on fighting as what's caused my losses. Had I actually been
You weren't
focused
training
on
as much as you used to?
what's with that?
So you weren't training as much as you usually do before your few losses?
Not training and then, working, things like this, just not putting the effort you should into a professional athlete and
So you
fighting especially.
okay.
I mean, anything. If you half-ass something, you're never going to get the result you want. And pretty much all my losses I can attribute to me not being focused on what I should have been focused on. And it's the focus is there now, and it's going to show.
Okay. So if you could go back to any fight, which would it be and how would you do it differently?
I got a couple. Roger Hollett is a big one for me. That was the worst injury I've ever had in a fight. I ended in a thumb in the eye when he threw a punch, and it was unintentional. But
Hey, you say you got a thumb in your eye?
I got a thumb. Yeah, he threw a punch, and it could have been the knuckle, but it basically got hit in the eye.
Oh man.
Ended up getting a bunch of eye damage. It broke my orbital bone. Had a depressed optic nerve, scratched my eye. It was the worst injury I've ever had. Even inside oil doing, and it's just like I got hit. I dropped like I was shot, and I was blind in my eye for a month. And that's one of the ones. I mean, it's part of the game. I mean, it does happen, but that's one of my most disappointing fights. That's when I lost the NFC belt, and it's not the way you want to lose something. I mean,
yeah, it's not very fair. That you'd think that would qualify for a rematch.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of factors about why there wasn't a rematch. I mean, me and Mark Pavlich, the owner of MFC at the time, we had a falling out, and there was a bunch of factors why why I didn't do that rematch. But that's a fight down the road I'd love to get back, and Roger's actually a friend of mine too. So I mean, there's no hard feelings there, but as an athlete, that's one of those ones that you want to get back. So
yeah,
really, any of my losses that I know I'm better than, that I wasn't focused. I went in and half-assed the training. And some of these fights, I was like, okay, I'm 3 weeks out from a fight. Maybe I should, maybe I should start training for this fight. And obviously, that's not the best way to go about things. So I learned my lesson, and so any of those losses that I know that I should have won, had it in training, I'd love them to get back.
Okay, so out of all of your fights, who would you say was the most challenging?
Luke Hawley, 100%. That fight was, I won the TFC Fight Club belt for that one. And that was a 5-round war. That's the best shape I've ever been in my life. That was 5 rounds of just a war. It was toe to toe the whole time.
It was brawling the whole time?
It was a war. It was standing ovation. But I've never been so beat up either. I think my head was the size of a pumpkin. I broke both my hands. He did too. We saw each other after, and it was just, we couldn't even.
You both broke your hands?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's not bad. No surgeries or anything, but I had fractures and sprained thumbs, and it was one of those things. You threw everything we could at each other, and neither of us would go down. And it was a great fight, and still probably my proudest fight that I've actually won. And that was a war and a half. That's definitely the fight.
And what did you say his name was again? I don't think I've seen that fight. I want to watch that.
Luke Hawley.
Luke Hawley?
Luke Hawley. Polley.
Okay, I've seen a few of your fights, but I don't think I've seen that one.
That was a good one.
I'll have to watch that afterwards. So, how do you mentally prepare before a fight? Are you usually nervous, excited, confident? How do you feel?
I'm actually usually very calm.
Really?
Yeah, I'm usually pretty calm going into fights. My first 10 fights or so, I was a nervous wreck like a lot of people, but So I read a lot of psychology books, mental training and things like that, and a lot of visualization, and I find them very calm. It's just one of those things I kind of talk myself into. And my last one here, I've never actually been so calm. It was actually really weird. I went in and, I was over 2 years off of a break, and I had no nerves at all, which was actually kind of alarming. It actually took me, the guy bombed a couple of leg kicks on me, and it took those, it took getting hit with those to actually kind of, snap me into the fight. And I went in, I was like, this is really weird. I'm not nervous at all. and there should be some nerves. I mean, obviously you want to control them, but yeah, I think that's one of the better aspects of my game is I am really relaxed going in, and it's saved my butt a few times. Not maybe going in like there's fights I've had, like when I fought Vernon White. I was really sick going in. I had a lung infection, and I took that on a short notice. I didn't know how I was going to actually make that fight and end up winning a decision on him. And I kind of attribute that to just being able to relax myself. Because if I would have went in all hyped up, I probably would have gassed out early in the first round. I think so. I think the mental focus and being relaxed, I think, is a huge part of my game.
So you'd say that's why you've been so successful so far? Because you can remain so calm?
I think so. I think it fits into my game. I know it doesn't work for everybody, but me, I think I find it my best when I'm relaxed and you're focused. And there's usually a bit of nerves, but it's definitely controllable nerves. So I think it helps my game out quite a bit.
Okay. So if you weren't an MMA fighter, what do you think you would be doing instead?
I'm doing exactly what I want to do right now. I mean, I do fight, but I kind of have my hand in a couple things at all times. Like I have a personal training business. I've been actually working with this new DNA company for about a year and a half now. And they do like DNA testing of athletes, cancer screening, things like this. Basically medical DNA testing, and been working with them, and basically it's like a glorified salesperson with them. But it all fits hand in hand with kind of like the fitness kind of field that I kind of landed in. And so I probably wouldn't change a thing. I'm going down the path that I want to be doing.
Okay, good. Alright, so this will be my last question. If you could get into the ring with any fighter, who would it be?
Ooh. Maybe not the best, career plan, but I think Fedor Emelianenko would be the
Fedor?
best guy. Fedor,
Really?
just to say I stepped in with him. I
That'd be
mean,
crazy.
he was one of the big guys like watching Pride that I was just amazed with. So
Yeah, he's a
I think
monster.
that'd be the guy. I mean, it might not be the prettiest fight going in, but he's definitely kind of one of the guys I look up to in MMA game.
Yeah, at least you can say you've done it. Not many people
Yeah,
can say they
yeah.
fought Fedor Emelianenko.
Just jump into the turtle position and take a beating, but